Wine labels can be a great guide to what's inside the bottle if you know how to read them. You can view them like a good book or a mystery to be solved. It's a family thing collecting wine labels. That is why I have a lot to show you, a lot to demonstrate. I'm Ellen from the blog Wine Talk with Ellen. Let's learn some stuff so that you can choose wine more confidently. A little knowledge goes a long way. Let's start this adventure. Okay, let's get started. Just like any good story, a wine label will have a who, a what, a where, maybe a when to, and a how. Time out. In case you don't know, there is Old World wine and New World wine. Basically, Old World is Europe and New World is everywhere else. The story is told very differently, or just differently, on Old World labels. Today I am only talking about New World labels. Stay tuned for Old World. That is the next video. Let the anticipation build. Okay, here I'm going to have a very small sampling. You saw a lot of the wine labels we have. I'm just doing a small sampling. I grabbed 2 wine labels to start, and they're very different price points, by the way. One, here's your who. Now, who sort of sounds intimate, as if you've got one little winemaker making the wine, and in some cases that is true. Generally not, but we're going to pretend, because there's always a who of somebody making the wine. This is A. Raffinelli and Kendall Jackson. They are much different price points. They are also much different sizes, but they still have the who. Next up is what. What is what grape? Here we have Merlot and Chardonnay. If you already have a sense of what grape variety you like, it's very helpful to see this. But in case you don't, now at least you know what you're looking at when you're looking at a wine label. There's your what. Okay, here is your where. Now, some wheres are bigger than others. As you can see, A. Raffinelli is listed as Dry Creek Valley in Sonoma County. Kendall Jackson is all of California. This is only where the grapes are grown. It is not where the wineries are. We're only talking about where the grapes are grown. Now, smaller areas, it's considered that they have better quality and they certainly have higher prices. It's basic supply and demand. But it's up to you whether you find it worth it to you. Now we move on to vintage. Vintage is the year that the grapes were picked. Now we have 2014 for one, 2016 for another. It matters more time. Sometimes it matters a lot. Sometimes it doesn't matter at all. And it also depends on how expensive your wine is. But it's also, sometimes you can look at it and go, oh, is that why that one tastes differently? Then we move on to how. As in, how does this make me feel alcohol-wise? ABV is not always easy to find on the label. These two, in fact, if you'll notice, I did not have the Kendall Jackson one because theirs is on the back label. Some of them are really hidden. You can see where it is on Joel Gott and on the A. Raffinelli. ABV stands for alcohol by volume. It can vary quite a bit. Generally, higher alcohol means a more full-bodied wine. Not always, and only you can decide what style appeals to you. You just want to be careful when buying or drinking a very high alcohol wine because it can really sneak up on you. Now, here you go. Now we get to the fun details. Like any good book, the details make the difference. If a varietal is listed on a wine label, that's the what, it must be at least 75% of the grape varieties used. This is New World only. We will get to Old World next time. Now, let's look at these 2 labels. Where did the Zinfandel go? Now look at the percentages. Now, Ridge makes a lot. Ridge is the who. Ridge makes a lot of Zinfandel wines. Now, here you go. One wine lists 100% Zinfandel, and the other one is much less, meaning it fell below 75%, so they do not list Zinfandel. It lost its top billing. And they only list the place where it is grown. The other one will tell you It says Zinfandel, and it also actually lists the vineyard it comes from. You still have your what? You still have your who, which is Ridge, and you still have your vintage. But you lose the Zinfandel component because, as you'll notice, it is much lower on this one. The next slide is the where is still here. Where did the Zinfandel go? Okay, look at the percentages. Notice that once you get below 75%, the varietal is gone. On the right, it says Zinfandel because it's 100%, and the other one is quite low. Geyserville, which is the area, they often use other grapes. You still, though, the where is still here. Technically, the Geyserville is a red blend, but it's a very high one, and they will give you percentages. East Bench is a vineyard. Both of them have the vintage, and Ridge is the producer. They have a lot of Zinfandels. I have a lot of Zinfandel. I have a lot of these wine labels. Okay, now we're getting into more casual red blend territory. It can be called anything. Bogle has a lot of varietal wines, but this one is their red blend, and they call it Essential Red. The one on the right is called Roustabout. They could call it whatever they want it. But if you look now, you still have the where. One of them is California, and the other one is Paso Robles, or Paso Robles, it depends. I've written a lot about them. And they call it a roustabout because they can call it whatever they want. But then they list below Meritage. Meritage is a trademark name, or it's some official name that Americans use for, or New World wines use for Bordeaux blends. Sometimes, though, you will not have any idea what is inside the red wine. This one is my example why it can really be, these red blends can be called anything. I put this in here because I don't know how long ago, my husband was coming home and we did not have red wine for dinner, and I said, just pick up a cheap red wine. And he comes home laughing because this one says cheap red wine. I love that idea. Winemakers can get very creative, and you will know with red blends, they have some fantastic names, and people will say, well, I bought it because of the label. And there's nothing wrong with that so long as you may not know what exactly is in the bottle. Some of the wine blends will list what grapes are in them in the back. So I'm showing the back label of the Bogle Essential Red. Oftentimes you will, looking at a back of a label is sometimes good because what's not on the front, they will give you more information on the back. Now, as I'm showing you here, many back labels give a lot of information, as I said. Now, this one shows you how sweet, how much residual sugar is in a wine. So when you are wondering what wine to buy, and if there's not enough information on the front, just turn the bottle around and see if you've got more information there. Now we're going to get into the little details that make the difference. Some of the details on a wine label are legal. They're legally certified things that may go on the label. One of them is kosher. Kosher is, you must be certified kosher. I've written a lot about that. Details for the links will be below in the details. Then there is organic. Organic is also certified. It is official. People work very hard to get the organic designation. You can't just only say, oh yeah, it's organic. Same goes with vegan. There is a certification for vegan, an official certification. And all kosher wines, by the way, are vegan. They may not say it because once it's kosher, they don't have to tell you it's vegan. But then there is stuff on the label that could mean something, but may not. Red herrings, if you're looking at this like a mystery. One of these is natural wines. Natural is not a regulated term. It usually means a low intervention wine that the winemaker sort of lets the grapes shine through, but it is not an official term. It can mean whatever the winemaker wants it to mean. One low intervention, one winemaker who thinks his wine is low intervention, the other one doesn't. So just know that natural, sometimes it's just good marketing and sometimes it's legit. Then there is old vines. Old vines can make amazing wines, but there's no official designation as to what old means. Everybody has their own term. Again, it could be marketing or it could be a delicious wine. Then there's the term reserve. Reserve in old world, it has an official designation. In the United States, it's a winemaker's choice to say, oh yes, this is my extra special wine, it's reserve. Doesn't mean anything. And that's it. You now have the basics of reading a New World wine label. The who, what, where, and how, just like any great story. A little knowledge really does go a long way. The best part, you don't need to memorize anything. Just use what may be helpful, explore, compare, and have fun with it. Stay tuned for the old world labels because that's where the real plot twists can happen. Cheers to all.